This soup is packed full of vegetables and flavor. It is hearty enough to make a full meal out of it, but light enough to eat during the warmer weather. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today's soup is so amazingly easy and so amazingly delicious. Like, I fell in love with it. You may wonder what is the difference between a summer minestrone and a regular minestrone soup. And honestly, it's just the ingredients and the consistency of the broth. A traditional minestrone soup is a little thicker of a broth, and we're gonna keep ours on the lighter side because that is so wonderful for those warmer months, right? And we're using all kinds of summer vegetables in here, and it is so amazing. I have tested this recipe on the stove in the Ninja Foodie, but guess what? The best results came from the Ninja Combi. So that's what I'm gonna use today. And you're gonna see why the Ninja Combi did such a great job with this. However, you can certainly do this on the stove and skip the roasting of the vegetables, or roast your vegetables in the oven and simmer the soup on the stove, okay? And I'll have all those instructions in my written post on my website, thesaltedpepper.com. All right, so let's get straight into setting up the Ninja Combi for our soup today. The Ninja Combi comes with 2 pans, okay? These are standard. They come with it when you purchase the appliance, and it is a tray that goes on top or on the bottom, depending on what function you're using. And then also another pan that they call a combi pan, okay? We're gonna be using both today, but I'm gonna start out by heating up the combi pan in the bottom on sear saute. So I'm gonna move this over to the side for right now. We are gonna use it though. All right, to set up for sear saute, you don't close the door, which is kind of interesting. So we're just gonna turn the combi on. We're gonna make sure that we are over here to the air fry side of things, which has our sear saute function. We're gonna go down and select the sear saute. There are different levels. This is gonna be your heat level. So I'm gonna start off on high. Nothing in the pan right now. We're just gonna get it heated up, then I'm gonna add some olive oil, and I'm gonna add in some of the vegetables. So let's talk about those right now. So what I have here is 2 stalks of celery that I sliced up in about 1/2 inch slice. You don't have to be too particular, but keep in mind it's a soup, so you want the soup vegetables to be about the same size. Then I took 1/2 of a sweet onion, and that was about 1/2 cup. That will depend on the size of your onion. So you can use, any amount that you need. You want roughly 1/2 cup. If you're a little bit over, a little bit under, it's not gonna make a difference. Then for the carrots, I used 2 to 3 carrots in my testing. It depends on the size of the carrot, honestly. Again, 1/2 cup. What I did was after I peeled them, I cut them in half lengthways and then sliced them. So I have like little half slices, and they're about 1/2 inch as well. All right, so those are gonna go in to our combi pan once we heat up some olive oil. Then what I have is about 2 tablespoons of sliced garlic. You can use 1 to 2 teaspoons of minced garlic if you like. I just liked the look and the flavor of the sliced garlic in this soup. But whatever you want, or if you don't like garlic, omit it. I mean, again, you can omit anything you want, it's your soup. All right, now, let me just tell you something really quick because I've done this 2 ways and I want to explain the difference so that you can make the decision that best suits your cooking style and the time that you have. You don't have to saute these vegetables, okay? You don't have to do that step. You don't have to heat this combi pan. You can literally dump everything in and then set it up and just start cooking. I did that the second time that I tested the recipe, and it turned out great. But there was a little bit of flavor difference. Like there was a little bit of depth of flavor difference in the time that I sauteed and the time that I didn't. So I'm gonna choose to saute because I like the flavor better. My husband, Jeff, couldn't really tell the difference. So really, if you're in a time crunch, don't even worry about this step. But I like to do it, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. So now that we've had a few minutes to heat up, I'm gonna pull the pan out a little bit and put about a tablespoon of olive oil right in the pan. Now, I know this looks a little cumbersome, and it is so much easier when the combi is facing you, and that is how you would be cooking at home. So I don't want you to worry about it. It looks a little cumbersome for me to do it, but for you to do it, it is much easier. All right, then we're gonna dump in our vegetables. I'm gonna leave the garlic. I am gonna dump the garlic in though, okay? So if your pan is sitting halfway in like mine is right now, it is starting to saute, okay? So it's working. So I can take a little bit of time here to go over the spice blend. I have 1 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt, or you could use kosher salt. If you're gonna use table salt, cut that in half because it's a much finer grind. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I have a 1/2 teaspoon of basil, 1/2 teaspoon of thyme leaves, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. That's the seasoning blend that I found that worked for me. You can change it up any which way you want. Now I'm gonna pull this out again a little bit and just sort of sprinkle it. Again, when you're doing this straight on, you don't have to pull it all the way out. Now, this might surprise you a little bit, but I'm using a 1/2 cup of ditalini pasta. That's not a lot of pasta, but it does give a good ratio of pasta to beans to vegetables in this soup. You can go up to about 3/4 cup without changing any of the liquid measurements, but if you do more than that, you're gonna have to increase your liquid measurements. Now, with the ditalini pasta, guess what? We are gonna saute that for a few minutes as well. And that is what might surprise you, right? Why would you saute the pasta? Well, let me get this going, and then I will explain it to you. So just stir all of this around, and then I dump on the garlic on top. I don't want the garlic to burn, so I like to keep it on the top, but it does start to cook a little bit. All right, there we go. So we're just gonna leave that alone and just throw the garlic. This is about 2 tablespoons of sliced garlic. Like I said, you could use 1 to 2 teaspoons of minced if you prefer. All right, I'm just gonna leave that alone. Now to have it cook a little bit faster, I think I'll just, or saute a little bit faster, I'll push this in and just sort of close the door a little bit. Again, you can't close the door all the way. Okay, so let's talk about why toast the pasta. Well, we're making a soup, and if you've ever made a soup and the pasta's perfect the day one that you serve it, but the second day you serve it, it might be a little over bloated, a little too soft, you don't like that. Well, toasting the pasta first is gonna slow the absorption of the water. So what I found is it creates a very nice al dente pasta day one, but day two, you don't have that over soft pasta. It's still perfect in the soup. And it has just a little bit of flavor too. So I choose to do it this way, but remember, you can skip all of this and just prep everything, dump it in and go, all right? Now I have 2 bay leaves that I will throw in right before we start to put the soup on. While this is sauteing, I'm gonna get the rest of the ingredients together here. And this is gonna be for the top tray. We're gonna roast these vegetables, which was so nice of a flavor in the soup, let me tell you. So just take the tray, take about 8 to 9 ounces of Roma tomatoes, slice them down the center. Now the reason why I use Roma tomatoes is because they don't have as much juice in them, but you could use any tomatoes that you like, really. And now I'm just gonna cut them into thirds. After I cut them in half again, so they're kind of large chunks. They will definitely shrink up as we roast them. So this is a good size for the soup. Now, if you didn't want to go to this trouble, which I don't think it's really any trouble at all, but if you didn't want to do it, you could use a can of fire roasted tomatoes, and that would give the same flavor. All right, perfect. Now, I also take my squash, my yellow squash, and my zucchini, and I do the same thing. You want about a cup or so of each one of the vegetables. So just wash them, cut off the ends. And then, let me move that so you can see. And then just cut them in half. We're gonna do the same thing, cut. You want these about the size that you would want them in your soup. They will shrink a little bit, just like the tomatoes, but not quite as much as the tomatoes. So just go down and cut them like that. And throw them on the pan. Doesn't really matter what side is up or down. It makes no difference. We're just getting a nice little char on there. And then do the same thing with the zucchini. Now, the next thing you want to do is just put a little bit of olive oil on top. I use probably about a tablespoon. And then I just salt them. If you like a peppery soup, you can add some pepper to these as well. But I'm gonna skip that right now. I'm just gonna use salt. And about a half of a teaspoon will do the trick. So really, there's no real measurement. I just sort of go over the vegetables until they have a nice little coating. So you probably don't even need a whole half of a teaspoon. You could probably get away with a quarter teaspoon. All right, that looks good. So now we're 10 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get everything set up because from here on out, it's gonna be hands-off cooking. So just give this a little stir around. Got some browning. That looks so lovely. Now, when I'm doing this and the combi's facing me, I don't pull this out. But because it's not facing me, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Okay, so I have 1 cup of fresh green beans that are cut into about 1.5 inch pieces, okay? And then we have 15.5 ounce can of cannellini beans, which I have drained. You can still see a little bit in the bottom, but I drained them. I did not rinse them. And I'll tell you why. I do like a little bit of the sauce or juice or whatever you want to call it in the soup. I just think it makes it, I don't know, a little bit better. But either way is okay, really. So I just leave a little bit on there, but I did drain most of it off. All right, the spinach comes later. We can put the 2 bay leaves in, and then we want to add in our liquids, which is going to be 6 cups of chicken stock. All right, stir that around a little bit, and then pop it into the lower level of the combi. Now, if you skipped the saute part, this is what you would do. You would put it on your counter, dump it all in, and then put it into the combi. All right, once the bottom pan is in, then we can put the top rack in. What I do like to do is just make sure that they are not really close together. So just break them up a little bit. And then put that on level 2. All right, that's it, my friends. Now let's get it set up to combi cook, which we're gonna do combi meals. So this needs to be in the up position. We can turn it off, turn it back on. Combi meals is what we want. That's the first thing selected. What combi meals is gonna do for us with this recipe is it's going to boil basically the liquid ingredients in the bottom. It's gonna start to cook those vegetables and cook that pasta perfectly. Create steam, so we're gonna soften some of our veggies on top. But after about 5 to 10 minutes of that, it's gonna switch over to a high, dry, roasting temperature of 450 degrees. And we're gonna get some roasting on those vegetables while the bottom pan is still cooking the soup for us. So it just works out beautifully. So take your temperature up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the highest temperature you can go on this setting, and take your time to 15 minutes and hit start. And that is all you need to do. Now you can absolutely walk away, and in about 20-25 minutes, you're gonna have some delicious soup. All right, there we go. We are all done. Now I'm gonna fish out the bay leaves, which luckily they're like right on top. And we've got our beautiful soup base. The pasta is cooked perfectly. I can tell that from just looking at it. It smells so good. Oh my gosh. Now, what I like to do, totally optional, but what I like to do is add a couple handfuls of spinach to the hot soup. So maybe about 2 cups or so, 2 to 3 cups. Really, there's no rules there. And then put it right underneath of the broth. Now, I use chicken broth, but you could use vegetable broth and make this vegetarian. Look at how beautiful that is. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we'll just let that sit in there. And then let's get out our roasted vegetables. I love this soup. First time I made it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is delicious. All right. Look at those. They look amazing. And they smell so, so good. And then just dump them in. And scrape the pan so you get any of the juices from the tomatoes. I like that to go into the soup as well. Oh my gosh. All right, there we go. I'll put this back in there until it cools down a little bit. All right, there we go. That is our summer minestrone soup. Wow. All right, now, a few garnishes too that I like to do. So let's dish this out. Gosh, this is so beautiful. Oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. So dish some into your bowl here. And then what I like to do is top it with some fresh basil. You can chiffon it if you want. You can just break it up, whatever you want, just a little bit. And then some Parmesan cheese. And instead of grating the Parmesan cheese, what I like to do is shave it. So I just take a vegetable peeler and just shave over the top and break it up into the soup. That adds a delicious flavor. And one thing I didn't mention, and I usually do, but I've made this so many times now, I know the seasonings are spot on for me, but you may want a little more salt. You may want a little bit more pepper. Or if you want a little bit of a spicy minestrone, you could add in some red pepper flakes, about 1/4 teaspoon in the seasoning blend in the beginning, or you can add them at the end, whatever you want. All right, there we go. Now we can't have this delicious soup without a nice crusty French roll. Oh my gosh, these are so amazing. And I like to dip them right in the soup. Oh goodness gracious, this is gonna be good. Wow. Those rolls are perfect. They were made in the Combi too. But you're here for the soup, so let's dig into the soup. Now it's important, obviously, when we're making soup, that all the components are cooked correctly. I don't like super soft green beans, so these should be soft, but with just a little bit of texture. You know, they're not gonna be really super, super soft. If you like them super soft, don't use fresh. You can use frozen, which will be blanched first, so they will soften just a little bit more. Or if you like them really soft, you can use canned, okay? All right, here we go. Wow. It is so fresh. And let me just tell you, it's absolutely delicious. All right, now I've got one of the zucchini that's roasted, roasted tomato, a little bit of that Parmesan, and one of the beans. Here we go. Oh my goodness, you're gonna love this soup. It is absolutely amazing. It is so good. and so easy to make.